In a speech that was more political than many royal watchers had anticipated, he spoke about the great anxiety and hardship experienced by many trying to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm. The 74-year-old monarch praised those supporting people in need with food and other assistance. He also paid tribute to the armed forces, teachers, emergency, health and care workers during a TV speech featuring a food bank and scenes of provisions being distributed to the homeless. It came as the nation endures a series of strikes by rail, postal and public sector workers amid an economic crisis caused by war in Ukraine and the COVID pandemic. Exactly 90 years after his great-grandfather, George V, delivered the first royal Christmas broadcast live from Sandringham, his recorded speech came from the choir of St. George's Chapel, Windsor. It is where his mother was laid to rest alongside his father in September. King Charles, who spoke about losing her, said he shared the late Queen's faith in people who can touch the lives of others with goodness and compassion. It was something he described as the essence of our community and the very foundation of our society. Praising public servants and volunteers, he said, "At this time of great anxiety and hardship, be it for those around the world facing conflict, famine or natural disaster, or for those at home finding ways to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm, we see it in the humanity of people throughout our nations and the Commonwealth who so readily respond to the plight of others." He added, "I particularly want to pay tribute to all those wonderfully kind people who so generously give food or donations, or that most precious commodity of all, their time, to support those around them in greatest need, together with the many charitable organizations which do such extraordinary work in the most difficult circumstances." Royal aides have said the cost of living crisis has weighed heavily on the King's shoulders and will be a factor in limiting spending on his coronation in May. They have, though, still promised it will be a colorful spectacle. On Friday it was announced he had arranged for donations sent in memory of the Queen to be passed on to the Fuel Bank Foundation. It is the only national charity to provide emergency help to people living without heat, light and power in their homes because they cannot afford to top up their meters. Charles had told Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford he was worried how people would cope during a difficult winter when they met in September. Royal author Phil Dampier was surprised at the speech, warning it was much more radical than I was expecting and risked him being accused of meddling in politics. But the late Queen, in her own understated way, also touched on matters of political controversy. In her 2019 Christmas broadcast she praised young environmental activists inspired by Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg and compared them to those of her generation who fought fascism. "The challenges many people face today may be different to those once faced by my generation," she said. "But I have been struck by how new generations have brought a similar sense of purpose to issues such as protecting our environment and our climate." On Christmas, the King also echoed his mother by putting his Christian faith at the heart of his message and recalled visiting Bethlehem. He said, "In the much-loved carol O Little Town of Bethlehem we sing of how in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light." My mother's belief in the power of that light was an essential part of her faith in God, but also her faith in people, and it is one which I share with my whole heart. But he also stressed the contribution of all major faiths. Our churches, synagogues, mosques, temples and gurdwaras, have once again united in feeding the hungry, providing love and support throughout the year, he said. A few days before his mother's funeral in September, the King told faith leaders that as monarch he had a duty to protect religious diversity in the UK. The 8-minute broadcast showed images of him, Camilla and close family. But there was no mention of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, whose relationship with the family is strained after their Netflix series. His decision to film the Christmas message at St. George's Chapel avoided the need for family photographs in the back. High notes hit by George, Charlotte. Prince George and Princess Charlotte sang in full voice at their mother the Princess of Wales's Christmas carol service, honouring the late Queen, writes Giles Sheldrick. George and Charlotte were among more than 1,800 people at the televised Westminster Abbey service, aired on ITV1 on Christmas Eve. At one point Kate was seen with a comforting arm around Charlotte's shoulder, while the Prince of Wales placed a guiding hand on his son George's back. Kate dedicated the carol service to the late Queen, paying tribute to her incredible legacy. Spearheading the service with support from the Royal Foundation, Kate said she was thrilled to return to the Abbey for a second year. She said, "This Christmas will be our first without her late Queen Elizabeth." Her Majesty held Christmas close to her heart, as a time that brought people together and reminded us of the importance of faith, friendship and family. This year, we've invited hundreds of inspiring individuals to the service. Those who showcase the power of connectedness and community values, allowing us to continue Her Majesty's tradition of recognizing and thanking those who have gone above and beyond to support others. Her Majesty leaves with us an incredible legacy. Among the performers were the Westminster Abbey Choir, singer Craig David, Alfie Boe and Spice Girl Melanie C. Archbishop's tribute to the Queen. The Archbishop of Canterbury paid tribute to the Queen and also remembered victims of the Ukraine war and the country's cost of living crisis, writes Cyril Dixon. He said she had lived a life of service and put her interest after those of the people she served. The Most Reverend Justin Welby used his first Christmas address since her death in September to recall the selfless example she set the whole country. And in Rome, Pope Francis, giving his Christmas message, called for an end to this senseless war in Ukraine, blaming attachment to power and money, pride, hypocrisy, falsehood. Analysis by Phil Dampy. Royal author King Charles's first Christmas message was much more radical than I was expecting. By linking the extraordinary ability of each person to touch, with goodness and compassion, the lives of others to striking nurses and charities offering food banks, our new monarch risks being accused of meddling in politics. He had previously said that he realized he couldn't speak out about issues that concern him when he became king, proclaiming, "I'm not that stupid." But there is a delicate balance to be kept, rightly praising the armed forces, emergency services, charities and all those working in public service, while not provoking the government of the day. Some would argue that Charles should express his opinions and that the future of the royal family depends on it being relevant to today's society. But that ignores the fundamental nature of our constitutional monarchy and the neutral role of the head of state. This is something the Queen understood so well. For 70 years we never really knew her politics or what she thought about controversial issues. While Charles is no longer writing his infamous Black Spider memos to cabinet ministers, we do know he thinks the proposal to send migrants to Rwanda is appalling. By highlighting volunteers who are helping people to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm, and praising charities and churches, is Charles making a stark contrast to our political class? Charles was always going to mention the Queen, his father Prince Philip, wife Camilla and the Prince and Princess of Wales. Brief footage of the Princess Royal and the Earl and Countess of Wessex also showed he values their roles. There was no mention of Harry and Meghan but no criticism of them either, leaving the door ajar for reconciliation at the coronation. Although he recorded his speech near to his mother's resting place and said he felt her absence, I was surprised he didn't make more of her achievements, concentrating instead on her deeply held religious beliefs, but to be fair he only had limited time. I wasn't, however, surprised by his references to other faiths and I'm sure diversity and inclusivity will be at the heart of his reign.